All right. Let us see. We should be live now, ladies and gentlemen. We should be alive. And we are. So, welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to each and every one of you. We're standing today because, I have a toothache. I've had one for about the last 2 days, and it's gotten to the point where it's mega annoying. So I feel uncomfortable no matter what I do. I feel uncomfortable when I'm sitting. I feel uncomfortable when I'm standing. I feel uncomfortable when I'm lying down. And the soonest I can be seen is next Monday. So I have a lot of painkillers in me. Let me just put it that way. I can still feel the tooth, which is the problem with toothaches. For some reason, you become ultra aware of your teeth. It's terrible, but it is what it is. And yeah, here we are. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. I hope you all had a wonderful day. Christine, how you doing? Francha, how you doing? Tekla, how you doing? And Magna, how are you? I'm very happy to be with all of you again. There's just one topic really that I wanted to discuss with all of you today. It would appear that our government is in Davos at the World Economic Forum. And so, good news, they've done fewer stupid things this week. I'm sure it'll happen. You know, the week's still early. There's still many, many days that they can say stupid crap. But, you know, is what it is. We'll take the wins when we can get it. Because everyone knows that this country's economy actually goes up at least 1 percentage point when the government doesn't say much. At least that's always been my experience. When the president, this was under Jacob Zuma, when Jacob Zuma would be quiet for a little while, the rand would actually start to do relatively well. And then as soon as he opened his mouth, you just see sentiment drop. And you'd just be like, dude, you could have just kept quiet for a little bit longer. But no, Ramaphosa has just, put on the tradition. Of course, there's a lot of stuff happening. The ANC appears to be on the back foot consistently. And I don't just mean with America, although America does play a massive part. And we are going to talk about Donald Trump. The majority of the stream is going to be about Donald Trump. CR, how you doing? Yes, I actually enjoy my standing desk. I spend most of the day standing at it. It's only really when I'm streaming or making videos that I sit down because I don't really have a good background when I'm standing, right? But when I'm working or when I'm reading stuff or looking for stuff, then I'm standing up because I get tired of sitting the whole time. Omar, how you doing? Adam, how you doing? I think what we're starting to see from the ANC is genuine panic. I'm talking about from the 8th of January when they had their sort of birthday bash, which wasn't really a birthday bash. The stadium wasn't even full. If you cast your mind back just a decade ago, wherever the ANC went, they would be able to fill out an entire stadium. Like, there would always be seas and seas of people. Recently, every single time the ANC goes out, they're met with a lot of anger from citizens, but also they're met with just fewer and fewer people actually going out to see them. We're also seeing the financial issues and the financial woes of the ANC play front and center. Where, back in the day, it would be extremely lavish with t-shirts being donned out and all sorts of food for everyone. Nowadays, we're seeing much, much less of that, which I think is, again, just a bit of an indication of where the ANC is currently. A lot of the donors that aren't terrorist nations, they're probably starting to realize that the ANC is on the outs, right? Especially with the ANC barely managing to get 40% of the vote. I think there's a genuine realization now that this kite is no longer flying, right? Or in Afrikaans, we say, die kite gaan nie vlieg nie. People have started to realize there's something wrong. And I think the ANC has realized this as well. This is why they're doing this sort of hyper renewal thing. I mean, they've always been renewing. I have found footage of Cyril Ramaphosa saying that they're renewing back in 2018. So that's nothing new. Renewal is what the ANC does. But this is the first time that it's really like renew. Every single top level ANC dude is just screaming about all of the renewal that they're going to be doing. Is it going to realize? Is it going to actually do something? Well, if we look at the sentiment from around the country, I would argue that most people have finally sort of realized, and of course, I mean voters, have finally sort of realized this is just talk. The ANC has been saying renewal for a long time, but nothing's really ever going to happen. And of course, if you put yourself in the position of the ANC, it makes sense why they can never actually renew. For the ANC to renew, I responded to a post on X from Fikile Mbalula where he said the ANC is not a corrupt organization. He was genuinely serious about that. He was like, no, there's corrupt people in the ANC, but the ANC is not corrupt. And when we find these corrupt people, we will get them out. They will not be part of our organization. And I just responded to him. I said, mate, come on now. The president of the ANC and of the country, your boss, is literally involved in a corruption scandal from day one. Pala Pala. It's still not resolved. What are you talking about? Right? Come on. Nicholas, thanks for the $70, dude. Really appreciate you. Thank you. Paul Mashatile. There is so much in the sort of backyard of Paul Mashatile. And the ANC desperately wants you to believe that we're not corrupt. Right? We're not the corrupt organization. Now, I say all of this. We also now have the Madlanga Commission as well as the Parliamentary Ad Hoc Commission, where we had the boss of crime intelligence in South Africa effectively tell us that the entire police force of Gauteng works for the cartels. They all work for the cartel. How do you think that happens? How do you think you end up in a country where an entire police force is on the payroll of the cartels? That only happens from the top. When it's the people at the top that is orchestrating it. When the police officers start to realize that these cartels have protection, the police start joining because the good cops leave. They understand that there's no way for them to actually make a difference. This is why I told all of you when General Mkhwanazi came out with his allegations, I don't believe that General Mkhwanazi is this great savior. He's not. He's probably just as corrupt as every other person. The difference is that his faction isn't currently in power. And so calling out the corrupt faction of Ramaphosa, that benefits him right now. Right? That's one argument. The other argument is, if we believe him, he's lost a family member to the drugs that was brought in by the cartel. So maybe he did have a moment of clarity where he just realized, wait, my conscience won't allow me to continue doing this. But the reports we have of this guy and the units that he's run is that he's just as involved in the crime facilities and the crime cartels of this country. But you have to understand, not all cartels are equal, and there is always fighting within these cartels because some cartels have some politicians, other cartels have other politicians, and they're all fighting to ultimately gain power. And this is what we're seeing play out. So if the ANC wanted to renew, they're about 2 decades too late. One might actually make the argument they're about 10 decades too late, or a century. You see, the ANC, and this is, by the way, why most revolutionary movements, or at least one of the reasons why most revolutionary movements are never successful governments. Revolutions are expensive. You need guns, you need ammunition, you need help from the outside, because most revolutionaries don't have a 9-to-5 job. They're fighting revolutions. So where do they get this money from? Drugs and guns. This is where they get their money from. They help smuggle guns, they help smuggle drugs, they help smuggle people, whatever they can get their hands on, because remember, we're fighting for our freedom or whatever. So by the time they get to power, they've made friends with a lot of bad people that aren't necessarily interested in staying on the outside, right? These people help you get to power. They now want their pound of meat. And by the time you're busy pay, or by the time you're done paying back, it's over, right? The game is up. So the ANC, there will be no renewal. And I think we're starting to see the panic set in. They genuinely don't know what to do. The other problem that I have, and this is a big one, and I'm gonna ask you guys in chat. I need to get an answer, and then, Nicholas, I will be with your donation. But I need you to tell me, what's the point of the GNU? I will take anyone explaining this to me in plain English. Any one of you. There's 83 of you right now in chat. What's the point of the GNU? While I'm waiting for your answers, let me quickly get to Nicholas here. Brother, civil war is a certainty. I watched your previous video. There is no peaceful path down here, and the ANC will go violently, attempting to retain power. So, Nicholas, I don't disagree with you that civil war appears to be the most logical outcome. But even if we said that civil war is an absolute certainty, it's going to happen, there are ways for that civil war to be very, very bloody, and then there are ways for that civil war to be less bloody. It's really going to depend on how we approach things leading up to that civil war. And that's why in my third scenario, the scenario where we federalize, but instead of federalizing along sort of more hard-hit lines, so if we were to federalize around skin color, that's a hard line, right? Even if you had a black person that believes in freedom and capitalism and is a Christian and believe in Christian morals and values, they can't cross over from the Bantustan to the white land, right? Because there's a skin color problem. So what happens is you have a group of people in this area, some communists, some capitalists, and there's fighting there that will just spill over into your side. But if you have a federal system where you don't focus on race and instead focus on worldview, focus on values, and you say, look, if you're a capitalist, if you believe in freedom, Christian values, Christian norms, you're welcome. Come on down, right? We don't care what your race is. Just come live with us, right? Because we want that capitalism. We want that freedom in the free market. What ends up happening is slowly but surely, you'll just drain the communist areas of all of their people, right? Because more and more people will start to realize that this communism thing isn't working, and look how well the capitalists are doing, and they'll just follow. So by the time the communists do want to pick up and say, right, we're going to come take your stuff now, you'll outnumber them, right? And so it's much less of a problem. Even in that scenario where it does still lead to a civil war, there are ways to mitigate that and make it as little of a problem as is humanly possible. But okay, based on all of your arguments, I'll just say the following, right? I don't even care if people think the DA, John Steenhuisen is just Ramaphosa light or anything like that. I understood the argument for the GNU when the GNU happened, right? I understood it. I didn't agree with the GNU from day one, and you guys can go back and watch my videos on that. From day one. This is before I ever started making videos about South African politics. This was when I was still in video gaming. So you'd have to go to Twitch and watch some of the VODs that I had over there. Because while we were streaming, I had South African viewers back then, and they would ask, what do you think of the GNU? What do you think of the GNU? And I always said, I don't agree with it. I think the GNU is a giant waste of time. Because I don't believe that this ANC is changeable. I don't believe that any country or any party can actually stem the tide of what the ANC wants to do. And I preferred a system of minority government because I didn't believe, and I still do not believe, that the ANC will side with the EFF and the MK, because Cyril Ramaphosa and the posse in the ANC understand that any alliance with the EFF is the end of the ANC. The EFF will eat the ANC for breakfast. Because the EFF is filled with a lot of very young, highly energetic, very good politicians. These people will want to take power, and Julius Malema understands that there is a faction within the ANC that wants to join the EFF. They want the EFF back. And so Cyril Ramaphosa understands this. So he wouldn't go with them. He wouldn't go with the MK. So he would just go into minority government, which means we would have a hung government. The government wouldn't be able to do anything, which, I mean, is it that bad? If the government can't do anything, at least they can't screw things up, right? Nicholas, once again, thanks for the $70. Did really appreciate your donation. Thank you. I genuinely appreciate it because it keeps me independent. So I can do this and I don't have to worry about people telling me what I can and can't say. And that's especially going to be true when we get to the second story for today, because the government seems to want to tell me what I can and cannot say now. Or at least they're going to be doing it for all content creators fairly soon. But effectively now, I think that question is far more pertinent than ever before. What is the point of the GNU? People tell me, well, it was to keep out the Doomsday Coalition. All right, well, what was the problem with the Doomsday Coalition? Oh, they were going to pass expropriation without compensation. They were going to pass the Bala Act. They were going to pass employment equity. They were going to pass expropriation without compensation. They were going to, go to war with the US. They were going to destroy the economy of South Africa. They were going to go full-blown communist and socialist. And I just go, well, they've done all of that. So, okay. If the DA was meant to stop it, why didn't they? Of course, we got that sort of half-hearted thing from Helen Zille that said, but we weren't in government when Bala was passed. But now you have a minister of the DA in education enforcing the Bala Act. That minister could literally say, I'm not enforcing the Bala Act. What are they going to do? The DA has as much right to be in the government as the ANC. That minister could literally just say, I'm not enforcing this. I don't agree with this. My party doesn't agree with this. I won't enforce it. John Steenhuisen said he will enforce expropriation with null compensation. John Steenhuisen enforces every single BE and EE law on the books. Every single minister within the government of national unity from every single party except for the Freedom Front Plus is enforcing every single law that the ANC has passed without fail. So my question again would be, what's the point of the GNU? Are we at a point where we can admit this clearly doesn't work? Yeah, Siege, I hear you, man. Gamer words is what comes to mind. That won't work. The differences on base culture level are too stark for individuals, perhaps, but not as groups. You can't wash a liberal, intelligent Englishman out of a barbarian. Nicholas, so I don't agree with that because I've had the pleasure of meeting plenty of black South Africans who are, some of them are more capitalist than you, right? And I'm not interested in groups. I have always only been interested in individuals. I don't believe in groups. There's no such thing as a group of anything. Pieter Kriel is a quote-unquote Afrikaner, but he does not share anything with me outside of the fact that he can speak Afrikaans, right? Dan Corder is a white dude, but he doesn't share anything with me outside of the fact that we happen to be of the same shade. I believe in individuals. That's the only thing that matters to me. I don't care about a group. So even if it is just 10 white people and 5 black people that form a society around capitalist values, that to me is better than any other type of society that I would want to live in. Because the second you enforce it along racial lines, I would be forced to live with people like Kim Heller, Pieter Kriel, and Dan Corder. Carl Niehaus might be my neighbor. At that point, I'd rather have a civil war. Like, holy shit, I might end up with some of them not in play, right? But that's ridiculous. So the racial line thing really doesn't work when you actually look at the broader conversation. The problem in South Africa isn't even that most black people in South Africa are communists, because I don't think most of them are. You see, the problem with communism really is the sort of white, liberal, college-educated type of ideology. You need to be, like, the only people that actually believe in communism are professors. It's people that have some modicum of intelligence, some modicum of education, that have convinced themselves that utopia is to some extent possible. Communism has never been the mantra of the people. That's why the whole Bolshevik, which means the majority, isn't actually true. The communists in Russia weren't the majority. They were the minority that grabbed power and then enforced their will upon the majority, because the majority didn't actually join them. Because the majority doesn't actually want communism. Most people who don't have much just want to live. They just want to live. They don't care about anything else. They just want to provide for their families. They want to be able to move up in the world. They don't understand the ins and outs of it. The problem in South Africa that we have to break through is the cultural mindset, this tribal mindset, this idea that, oh, if you're black, you have to vote for a black party. Or if you're white, you have to vote for a white party. No, you have to vote for a party that stands on basic principles that you agree with. And that would be capitalism, freedom, Christian values and norms. That's what's important. Everything else, that's noise. And that's noise that if we focus on that, we're screwed in this country. And I genuinely believe that. Now, I welcome every other opinion, right? And I welcome that I have friends that don't share this opinion. I'm great friends with him, but we do not see eye to eye on this one issue. And I'm fine with that, right? I don't care what people believe, because I think if we're ever going to move forward as a society, we have to be able to have these conversations. Otherwise, it's just not going to work. It's the core of society, starting with the family and expanding outward from there. Nicholas, you're not wrong, but tribes can be manipulated. A tribe does not have to be, and this is what I said yesterday, a tribe, the easiest form of tribalism is skin color, right? You're absolutely correct. But it doesn't have to be skin color. It's skin color if you focus on nothing else. But if you give people something else to agree on, they will agree on that. Look at what Christianity has been able to do. You take a Christian in South Africa and you take a Christian in America, and they have immediately something in common. Something that links them that is stronger than anyone else, right? If you took an atheist from South Africa that speaks Afrikaans, is an Afrikaner, goes to Sokkies on the weekend, right? Wears his khaki broek and his khaki shirt and his fallies. You take that guy, but he's an atheist, and you give me a blue-haired American painter, but he's a Christian conservative? I have more in common with him than what I have with this Afrikaner. Because we share the same savior. And I would rather stand with that guy from America than I would with the guy in the khakis and the fallies. Because I can trust what that guy believes in, right? Because I know we read the same book, we have the same father. I can trust him. If you make that your focus, you're much further along than skin color. Because skin color, as powerful as it can also be quite fickle. And it can lead to a lot of bad things down the line. So I'm not that interested in the skin color thing. I'm much more interested in what do you believe? Because if you and I agree on that, we agree on enough, as far as I'm concerned. Again, I'm not asking everyone to understand this. And I'm not even asking everyone to believe this. Because I understand that everyone's experience is different. I'm probably lucky enough that I've moved in circles where the people that I encounter on a day-to-day basis are already quite a lot like me, regardless of skin color, and so it just works fairly well, right? I don't see it that way, but I understand that there might be some of you that live in different parts of the country where the cultures are just so different that it feels like an impassable bridge. And so I understand that there might be differences of opinion there. And I welcome those because we need that debate. Abaddon, how you doing? Also, Ferorius, I saw you coming into... Cesius, I saw you coming into the chat as well. Opinions on Ayn Rand. Mornay, so Ayn Rand... this is going to piss off a lot of libertarians. I used to be a massive Ayn Rand fan. I used to be an anarchist, actually. I went from being at university, I was a communist. So I believed in communism, which was basically just tied to laziness. I just didn't want to work. So it was easy to just be a communist. Yeah, let the government take care of me so I can just, go out and get drunk the whole time. Then I started working, and with my first paycheck, I realized, okay, this communism thing is stupid. Because I saw how much the government is taking, and I was like, well, that's dumb. I do all the work and they get all the money. This is not fair. So it wasn't quite that quick. I started reading books, and I specifically started reading Karl Marx, and then I read Adam Smith, and then I sort of realized, okay, Karl Marx is an idiot that clearly doesn't understand how the world works. Adam Smith, good guy, I really like him. And then I started reading Ayn Rand. I must admit, I've never actually read any of her books. I've read a lot about her philosophy, but her books, like At the Shroud, I have not read yet. I do have the book, but I have not read it yet. It's on my list. Now, my one problem with Ayn Rand, like the communists, Ayn Rand gets something basic about human psychology wrong. The communist believes that if the government can provide for every single person to the point where people have no more needs, then greed will just go away. And no one will suffer from greed ever again. That's the communist belief. This is why communism always fails. Because no matter how much the government takes care of people, they cannot remove the greed. The greed is there. Every single person, every single human has some modicum of greed, right? Ayn Rand makes the same mistake on the other end. So Ayn Rand believes that people can be taught to be rationally self-interested. So everyone must be self-interested, but then eventually people will be rationally self-interested. I see no evidence that the vast majority of people make rational decisions. People make comfortable decisions. If it suits them and it's in their best interest to be rational, they can be. But if it suits them to not be rational and do something irrational, and the downsides of that is too far removed from the action, I see no evidence that people think that far ahead. And so Ayn Rand's philosophy is built on the idea that people should be able to be rationally self-interested. If that isn't true, if people can't be rationally self-interested, then Ayn Rand's philosophy does not transfer. And therefore, I'm not a huge fan of Ayn Rand and the libertarian movement, because I think at some point you are going to run into issues with that. Individuality and self-enterprise was what America was built on. That's why so many cultures can exist together. Multiculturalism is most of the time a lie. So, Chivu, you're not wrong. The Americans did one thing perfectly, and this is what helped them to become a melting pot of the world. And this is also the thing that eventually failed them. What America did was it took people from all over the world and said, everyone's welcome, you can come, on one condition. That's our flag and it's sacred. That's why kids used to pledge allegiance to the flag, right? I don't know the Pledge of Allegiance, so I won't say it here, but it's something like I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America to defend and something else. I don't know the full Pledge of Allegiance, but they did it every single morning. Why? Because if you get people to believe in that symbol, then everyone who believes in that symbol is part of the same tribe. And now we can all work together. And then about 40 years ago, the hippie movement happened, and the hippies hated America. They hated the flag. They burnt the flag. And what happened was the entire system that was supposed to exist to incorporate all of these people from all over the world crumbled overnight. Because now that we no longer have the flag, what do we have that binds us together? When you have people that openly say, America is the greatest blight that has ever existed, but they live in America, you realize, okay, wait, there's no connections here anymore. We have lost the ability to connect on anything. Never mind the stupidity of anyone that thinks America is the greatest evil in the world. It is even more stupid for an actual American to believe that, because what do you think happens when the superpower of the world stops being the superpower of the world? What happens? Anyone? War happens. Many millions of people die. That is what has happened in every single period in history where the superpower ultimately falls. Millions and millions of people die. because the superpower does not go quietly into that good night. That's never how it works. But of course, telling a liberal how history works is a fool's game. But okay, so let's just quickly talk about this. I'm going to have a video about this tomorrow, so I don't have to do it right now. Wait, Grandful, let me read this. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Amen. Amen. And yes, it's about a power vacuum, but not just that. So the power vacuum tends to come afterwards, right? So what happens is the power vacuum happens once the big war has happened. So what ends up happening is a superpower doesn't just go quietly into the night. As the superpower starts to feel the pressure from outside, as the superpower starts to feel that it is slipping, it now goes on the attack. So what will happen in this scenario, if this happened to America, America would attack China because China is the second up. And the thinking from the superpower is if we can defeat the second strongest nation, then we're so far ahead of everyone else that we can probably survive off of that. So now they're embroiled in this massive war with the second power. This usually involves the whole world because that war will spill over into other arenas, and that's where millions of people die. But now when the second power takes over from the first power, there is a power vacuum that is created, right? Because the second power, now the power, has not yet drifted into everything, right? They have not yet established their control over the nations. And so these power vacuums will take even more people with it before the second nation has finally had an opportunity to sort of restabilize things. This is where people should be very careful of hoping for China to be the world superpower, because China will allow the most evil regimes in the world to ultimately take over. Because superpowers tend to sort of project their power and their government structures throughout the world. So if China were to become the world superpower tomorrow, expect many, many dictatorships to rise up. Because now all of these governments that were afraid in the past of becoming dictatorships because they didn't want America to act against them, know that China won't act against them because China is also a dictatorship. And so now you have dictatorships popping up all over the world because the one thing politicians love more than money is power, right? Because power brings more money. And that's ultimately why most people should not be wishing for America to stop being the world superpower, because it will lead to just absolute destruction for a lot of people. But okay, a very quick story here. Before we continue, I will have a video about this in more detail tomorrow morning, so don't worry about that. But the government of South Africa is planning to crack down on podcasts. This is an article from My Broadband, Trusted in Tech. Now, I will say my broadband isn't quite the worst in South Africa, but effectively all you guys need to understand right now is that the government is seeking, and they've been seeking to do this for a few years now, they're seeking to basically bring all online content, that would be YouTubes and podcasts, into the Digital Information Act of South Africa. This would give the government direct control and legislation power over podcasts to effectively, they say it's to protect podcasters, because if something happens and if YouTube, say, cancels your account for no reason, then the government will step in. But we all know that that's not actually why it is. They claim, because they were asked, is this about freedom of speech? Is there anyone specifically? And they were like, no, we're not coming after freedom of speech. We just need control of this. The one thing that will be bad, or will reflect very, very badly on all of you, will be, so firstly, they may require every single person that has a podcast to get a license from the government. So I and every other YouTuber would have to go apply at the government for an online broadcasting license so that we can actually make content. That means there's rules involved now. Things that I can say, things that I can't say, all manner of stuff, right? Just immediately comes into effect. Not only that, and this is the thing that will affect a lot of you a lot more, they also want to bring Prime and Netflix and all of these other guys into this Digital Information Act, which will then mean that all of these guys have to apply for a broadcasting license as well. And that comes with a demand for 50% of all content must be locally produced, or else they have to pay a lot of money into the wealth fund or whatever fund the ANC has. This will almost certainly mean one or two things. People like Netflix, people like Prime might just pull out of the country if it's not really worth it for them. Or more importantly, it will get a lot more expensive for us to be on these platforms because they're going to be forced to pay a lot of money to actually operate here in South Africa. So just keep that in mind. I will have a video that I go into more detail tomorrow morning on this, but keep that in mind. So now to the topic at hand. Let's talk about Donald Trump and the experts. Now, I've watched an obscene amount of videos and podcasts over the last 2 days of experts, geopolitical experts. These are people with very much, the degrees in political science, the degrees in history, all saying the same thing. Donald Trump is going to be the bad guy in history. When we look back in history on this era, Donald Trump is going to be the bad guy because Donald Trump has destroyed the idea of international law. And they make decent points. Let me explain. They say it was America that founded NATO. That's true. It was America that founded the United Nations. That's true. It was America that came up with international law. Again, that's true. It was America that enforced international law. Again, that's true. But then here's where all of them get it so very wrong. And that's the point of today's video. That's why it's not going to be that long, because it's not that difficult to understand. They all say the same thing. They say that if China and Russia were to decide tomorrow to just take what they want, America can no longer say to these countries with a clear conscience, you cannot do that. Because America did it first. Trump has just shown to every single evil dictator in the world that if you want it, just take it. That's how it's supposed to work. And they're not wrong. They're not wrong, right? Donald Trump certainly did show that if you don't like what someone is doing, you can use force and remove the president of Venezuela, illegitimate as he was, right? If you want Greenland, you can certainly apply pressure and get Greenland. Again, they're not wrong. Where they are wrong is in show me a period in history where Russia, China, Iran, Iraq, most of the Middle East, most of Eastern Europe actually played by the rules of international law. Like, I'll wait. These guys are acting as if prior to Donald Trump coming to power, not a single one of the countries in the world ever broke international law. All of the countries were adhering to international law forever. So I guess I have great news for all of the Europeans. Russia has never and will never invade Ukraine. Will not happen. I have been reliably informed that because America, up until 2024, followed the international law, Russia was forced to follow it too. So Russia, the only thing Russia is guilty of in Ukraine is President Putin walked up to the border, looked Zelensky in the eye, and said to him, enough of this. I am tired. And then he went home. There's no war. It's like Australia. It's a myth. Because, hey, there's international law, and international law says one country cannot invade another country, so that clearly never happened. I also have another amazing piece of news for all of the American tech companies out there. China has never in the history of international trade stolen a single piece of intellectual property from any of your companies. You know that battery that eerily looks like a Tesla battery? Complete coincidence. It is the geniuses in China, their engineers, that just happened to design a battery that looks exactly like the Tesla battery. You know the cars that they're now making in China at massive rates that eerily have all of the same technology as the BMW, the Audi, and the Volkswagen? Coincidence. China has never stolen IP from anyone. You know all those rumors about China wanting to invade Taiwan and bring Taiwan back into the one China policy thing? It's just rumors. China has never, because international law states that China cannot do that. You know when China didn't take Tibet? Yeah, oh, by the way, guys, Tibet is still a free country. It's not part of China. It was not, under any circumstances, violently forced to be part of China. China and India doesn't have land disputes. India and Pakistan has not bombed each other at all, because that would be against international law, of course. And here's the big one for all of my South African viewers. There are absolutely no race laws in South Africa, not even redress laws that look eerily a lot like race laws. Because that would obviously be against international law. Oh, another thing, there are no dictators. Nicolas Maduro was not a dictator, because international law states that people must be free to associate and that people can't be dictators. So when I open the news and I read all of these bad stories around the world, I can say now with absolute certainty, according to the experts, that all of the mainstream media are a bunch of liars. Because all of these bad things that keep happening are so clearly against international law. And since America has always followed international law, none of the other countries would ever dream of breaking international law, because that would make America look like fools. Why are they following international law when all these other countries are just breaking it consistently? All jokes aside, you're a fool if you still believe that. China, Russia, Iran, Iraq, the whole of the Middle East, literally every single country in the world consistently and continuously breaks international law, even the holier-than-thou Europeans. I will remind all of you that in order to be part of the International Trade Organization, right, or the World Trade Organization, the WTO, you cannot have tariffs and protective barriers that stop free and fair access to your markets. You're not allowed to have that. That's what Trump was told. When Trump wanted to do the tariffs, the World Trade Organization was like, whoa, 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 whoa. That's against international law. The Europeans jumped this high. They were like, how dare he have tariffs and trade barriers put up against us? They've been doing it for the last 50 years. Europe is one of the most closed off markets in the world. The only country that has more trade barriers than Europe is China. But America is the bad guy. When Trump wants to put up tariffs, Canada, who has tariffs against American goods, Europe, who has tariffs against American goods, South Africa, who has tariffs against American goods, China, who has tariffs against American goods, all of them are screaming international law, international law. How dare this man? He's so evil. He's going to cause World War III. You have all been doing the exact same thing, you bloody hypocrites. What Trump has realized is that America seems to be the only one that mostly plays by the rules. Every other country for the last 50 years has gotten away with the rules, breaking it consistently at the expense of the American people. So Trump is now finally saying, bullshit, bollocks to that. I have the world's strongest military. There is not a single nation in this world that can fight me. Even if Europe took all of their people, gave them sticks, and sent them, it would take the American military an afternoon to defeat them. Because half of the European nations are confused about their gender. The other half has so much soy in their veins that they would literally grow breasts. It's insane to even think that Europe could stand against the might of the American military. If Europe and China and Russia and everyone combined, America would still beat them all. That's how much more advanced the American military is against every other nation on Earth. So Trump just said, well, why am I playing by the rules? None of these other guys are. It's my people that's suffering. It's my people that's paying the price when all of these other people are living in luxury. My people, the American people, are paying for most of your stuff. Like the free healthcare that Europe so boasts about, mostly funded by America. It's the American pharmaceutical companies that makes all of the drugs, patents all of the drugs, sells it for barely anything to the Europeans, and then overcharges the American public for it. So Americans are bankrolling the free ride for the whole world, and then America is the only country that's not allowed to break international law. Trump simply woke up and said, enough of this. I don't believe that we should be playing by these rules. We're the only country in the world that can afford not to. And so now Trump is playing by everyone else's rules. And the problem is, as Thomas Sowell so famously said, if you're used to preferential treatment, equal treatment feels like punishment. And that's why for the first time in history, well, not for the first time in history, but in the first time in modern history, the Europeans feel like Trump is being unfair, when in reality he's being fair. You're finally getting the treatment that you deserve. That's why the ANC continues to cry and cry about what Donald Trump is doing. He's so unfair. Why is he targeting us? Maybe because you keep being friends with all of his enemies. Maybe because when he asks you to disavow a song, you can't even do that. Maybe you brought it on yourself. And I'll go even further. Donald Trump is the reason that there won't be a third world war. Because what everyone seems to be sort of pushing and what everyone seems to be getting wrong is they seem to think that the last 40 years of international law brought with it peace and prosperity. It's the same sort of mindset, the lie that Europeans fall into when they tell you why the European Union is such a great thing and why we needed the European Union. They will all say the exact same line. That's how you know they all went to government schools. Because when you ask a European, why do you need the European Union? World War II. Germany. Thanks to the European Union, Germany has never risen up again to try and kill all of Europe. That's why. But that's just not true. Germany already conquered the whole of Europe. It doesn't need to fight a war. The European Union has given Germany the power to basically tell every other European nation what it can and cannot do. The reason Germany has never risen up and fought with the rest of Europe is trade. Germany gains far more being friends with their European partners than what they would gain being enemies. And so there has been no need for them to fight. You could have that trade without the Union. That's pretty easy. The European Union did nothing. It was nothing. This is the same thing with the UN. This is the same thing with NATO. Because when you actually look at the world, NATO did do something. The European Union or the United Nations did do something. It removed global wars, but it increased regional wars. See, because in the past, when we go back to colonial times, right? So when we go back to where Europe basically owned massive parts of Africa, if you had Somalia and Somaliland fighting a massive civil war, do you think France and Spain and Britain would allow that to continue? Of course not. Because even if none of them actually owned Somalia, they understand that that civil war could spill into their countries that they do actually own. And so they would move in and they would shut it down. They would shut it down immediately because this can't stand. That's the benefit of having a strong power that rules the world. When you have a strong, great power that rules the world, that strong, great power steps in when tiny and smaller nations start to cause trouble. Because it's pretty simple. We have the guns, we have the military, we can tell you what to do. And they usually get it done. What international law is allowed is for all of these countries to go into these prolonged civil wars and then just scream sovereignty. You can't invade us. We're a sovereign nation. If we want to kill our own people, then we can do that. It's fake. It's false. It's never existed. Trump is just the first president in the world to finally realize that. It should not have taken this long, but it did. And I'm glad that Trump has finally gone, well, this is nonsense. Why are we playing by these rules when no one else seems to? Lamborghini with the $70, dude, really appreciate you. Thank you. To be honest, there is no international law, as if you apply those laws, the ambiguity of the word sovereignty comes into play. Paradoxically. Oh, Lamborghini, yes. Yes, you're absolutely correct. The second, there is such a thing as international law. If you as a country, for example, belong to the United Nations, you are by definition no longer sovereign. Because your laws are being dictated by another organization that isn't you. That means you're no longer sovereign. So yeah, it's sort of self-defeating argument. Turning Point South Africa, how you doing, bro? South Africa needs a few Delta Force inoculations. Someone needs to be in charge. If not USA and Trump now, who when? It's gonna be the United States. Trump just does things that most countries do. The only thing is, Mr. Trump does things in the open. He doesn't hide what he is doing. And you know what, Mayor? That's the thing that makes me love Trump most. That's the thing that makes me love him most. What you see is what you get with Donald Trump. He just says it. He doesn't care. He just goes, I want Greenland. That's it. No explanations. I want it. It's mine. And I'm taking it. And that's it. That's the end of it, right? No big speeches. No trying to dolly it up so that the liberal voters can also understand. He doesn't give it a pretty little name like, spreading democracy bill or anything like that. No. I want Greenland. It's got a lot of resources and I want it. Same with Venezuela. George W. Bush, before invading Afghanistan, he had to say, we're bringing democracy. We're liberating the people because the liberals need something nice. Barack Obama, for example, before Barack Obama passed one of the most atrocious bills in the history of America, a bill that effectively killed every single small company and allowed the big companies to get even bigger. Barack Obama understood it has to have a nice name, though. I know, we'll call it the Net Neutrality Bill. People will love it. They'll love it. The Net Neutrality Bill. We won't tell them, of course, that it will destroy thousands of tiny little internet service providers. We won't tell them that it protects literally all of the big guys. As long as that has a nice name, it just needs to sound nice, the liberals are on board. Because they don't care about what's inside, they just care about the fact that it sounds good. That's why when Biden passed his Inflation Reduction Act, all the liberals were like, dude, it's reducing inflation. It says it right in the name. And it's like, which one of those policies are reducing inflation? The man is spending record amounts of money. You know, the thing that causes inflation? Yeah, he's spending records amounts of money on things that will not lead to economic growth. You know, the other thing that causes inflation is stagnation. So which part of that bill reduces inflation? And as you saw, it didn't actually reduce any inflation. But that's the whole point. And this is what I appreciate of Trump. Trump takes Venezuela, and the media goes with these gotcha questions. They're like, why? Why are you in Venezuela? And Trump, without taking a breath, just goes, we're going to take the oil. It's a lot of oil. We're going to keep the money, and we're going to decide how they get to spend it. He doesn't try and say, oh, we're helping the people of Venezuela, and we're going to set up democracy for the people in Venezuela, and we're going to give them each a sandwich. No. We want the oil. Drill, baby, drill. Because that is the truth. It just also happens to help the people of Venezuela. Right? But this isn't, and we shouldn't pretend like governments ever do something purely out of the goodness of their own hearts. Right? Why would they? Why would America help the people of Venezuela? Does it serve the American people to just help the people of Venezuela? No. But what if you could help the people of Venezuela plus help the people of America? Well, now it's much easier to do, and it's an easier argument. So I appreciate that. They hate us because we tell them the truth most of the time, and they don't want to accept it. Grandful, you're not wrong. You're not wrong. South Africa isn't sovereign since the borders are open. Many people are backing up vigilante groups like Operation Dudula, March on March. Oh yeah, you're not wrong. Riv, we have a lot of problems in South Africa. That is just the truth. Lol, the nuance on YouTube this week is love this channel. You on point, my butt. Not bad for a Cape Townie. Keep pumping, brew. So turning point, I am not a Cape Tony or a Cape Townie. I've lived in Cape Town for almost 5 years. This is my 5th year here. But I'm actually a Burkie from the north, way north, up in Limpopo. We have no filter up in the north. We just say it as it is. So yeah, I didn't grow up here. You live in the Cape. You are a Capey, period. I would argue, Nicholas, that I am probably more Capey now than I'm not. That I would agree with. Culturally speaking, I love Cape Town. I love the people here. I enjoy the culture. I have so many friends here. I have an amazing church with, if I just look at my birthday dinner, I had something like 18 people at my birthday dinner, and that wasn't even all my friends. A lot of my friends had to go to Australia. One had to go to the UK. My brother is in the Netherlands at the moment. Some of my friends were busy with young adults, they were going on a hike. So it wasn't even all my friends, right, that were there. And those are all people that I consider very close friends, people that I hang out with pretty much on the reg. So yeah, I've made wonderful friends. I have a wonderful life here. I love this place. It is miles better than Pretoria. Vican, how you doing, bro? Welcome. New Zealander, my old rugby team. I won't say that too loudly. I do support the Springboks now, just FYI. But there was a small, tiny stint right after high school where I actually supported the All Blacks. I know, that is disgusting. I realize that. But in my defense, this was a particular time. I don't know if you guys remember Stampka Rugby. You guys remember when South Africa was playing the ball goes to the forwards and they just run straight at the guy and just that's it. There's no variation to the play. It was that period of time, and the All Blacks was just playing this game that the ball just continuously flow. And I was just like, dude, this is better. I like this kind of rugby. Hader Cockstead with a passion. Christine, no, I like it. Wait, have you Cape Townies started building your wall yet? No. I don't know. I don't know if there is one yet. To understand Trump right now, watch the Elon and Don Lemon interview where Elon realizes a dumb person is interviewing him. Very funny, very apt. Yeah, I watched that a while ago. Nobody in Cape Town is originally from Cape Town. Maybe the people in the southern suburbs, maybe they are originally from Cape Town. You must take World of Warcraft Shadowlands Collector's Edition down and put vanilla up there. Shadowlands is like the North Korea of expansions. Roll on the floor. Lamborghini, yeah, I just have it. It was given to me for free by Blizzard back when I still had a relationship with them. They sent it to me as a content creator of theirs. And it also happened to be the expansion where I realized I hate WoW. So, yeah. Started building your wall yet? Turning Point, as I said, I don't know if there's a wall yet. I have no idea. I know they want to build the wall. And I know, like with everything else in South Africa, I'm no fan of the DA. So it pains me to have to defend them. But I find myself consistently having to defend the DA because people keep saying that it's the DA's fault that the gangs are as bad as they are in places like Cape Flats and Khayelitsha. And it's just like, dudes, come on. Like, seriously? We're going to be playing this game the whole time? So yeah, it's a bit asinine to me. All right, ladies and gentlemen, that is the end of our hour. I want to say a massive shout out and thank you to literally all of you. It's been such an amazing month. Just every single video I upload, the response from you guys. So many of you like the videos. So many of you comment on the videos. And I see every single one of your comments, by the way. I love reading the comments. I don't always have time to respond to all of them, but a lot of your comments actually lead to responses in future videos. So when I make a video, I'll remember a comment that maybe someone misunderstood or someone had a good point, and I'll point that out in the videos. So I truly appreciate just everything. And then, of course, almost every single video I upload, there are people who donate money on those videos, which is insane to me. The Grey Hour, how you doing? Yeah, the curtain, what happened? That's a nightmare. So this curtain doesn't really serve a purpose. It because the window is blacked out, but it's stretched. I did a thing that I only realized far too late that I did, and so it kind of ruined the curtain in the back there. So I have to get a new curtain at some point. But yeah, I appreciate you guys so much. Like you genuinely do not understand how much I appreciate all of you. And just the insane amount of love that you guys showed to this channel. The growth has been phenomenal. Ferorius, how you doing, bro? Gusty, how you doing? It's been amazing. The work that I've been doing, it's been so much fun. And I'll keep doing it as long as you guys keep watching and keep enjoying it. So yeah, I hope to see you guys back here tomorrow. I don't know yet if we'll have a stream tomorrow. Just keep an eye on the channel. I will upload. I will schedule if we're gonna have one tomorrow night. I definitely won't have one because tomorrow night's Bible study. So I won't be here for a stream tomorrow night, but it might be tomorrow afternoon. Either way, ladies and gentlemen, I truly appreciate all of you. If I don't see you tomorrow, have a wonderful Wednesday. Look out for my video tomorrow morning again, because it will be coming. As always, ladies and gentlemen, be good to each other. Be kind to each other. And I shall see all of you in the next one. Peace. And before anyone says that's not the peace sign, yes, it is. That would not be the peace sign. But that's the peace sign. You're allowed to make it that way. You could do it that way, but that's more hippie. That's more peace. Don't make war and all that. I don't want to say that. So that's better. I'll see you guys later. Bye.